shout out to the breakdown dude. Shout out to the dude who came up with this instrumental for this intro. I'm gonna let it play for a minute. Because if y'all really rock with us, then y'all rock with the intro. All right, shout out to the guy who made the intro, Philip P. That's one of my good friends. Stays out here in the Coachella Valley. My name is Barry Long II, not the first, not the third. We are live on CoachellaValley.com. We are live on today'scalifornia.com. We are live on today'scanada.com. We're all over the Twitterverse, all over the metaverse, all over the universe. And if you don't know who Meta is, it's Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg had to change the name. But we had to change the name to the show, too. It used to be called Go Long Live, but now it's called the Hot Minutia. And if you do not know what the hell the word minutia means, it means, look at the root word, minute. It means the minute details, the intricacies, the most specific, smallest details. And shout out to my guy, Rudy Ramon Reyes, who is the one who is responsible for the type of name. And you're muted right now. So can you unmute yourself, sir?
Well, I stay muted for good reason.
because you can't wait to tell people you can't wait to snap on me. Right?
No, there's really nothing to wait on here. You know, I could have turned the video off and been like dancing. And,
well, don't ever turn your video off because people have told me that they believe that Rudy Reyes is a good-looking guy, and I'm not into guys, but I would tell you that you're a good-looking guy, except when you wear a hat like that says Pittsburgh on it, because I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. Everybody knows that.
That's perfectly okay. And you know what? You will sleep good tonight.
Well, look, we already have a comment right now. Bill said so. My guy, we love you, Bill, so much. Bill said so, says, hi, Barry and Rudy. And it doesn't feel like a show. We always say it every show. It doesn't feel like a show unless Bill said so says, hi, Barry and Rudy. And we have some really good topics to talk about today because, first and foremost, I'm a Ravens fan. You're a Steelers fan. What's been heavy on my heart lately has been Dwayne Haskins. We found out this weekend that he died by being hit by a dump truck while running on the interstate. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the legacy that he left behind in college and the legacy that he could have potentially left behind in the NFL. But no matter what, it is sad when we lose a professional athlete. We also saw the Nets defeat the Cavaliers 115-108 just now in the playing game. We have an active playoff game, playing game right now. And we got to talk about Frank Vogel being fired from the Lakers. So before we get into any of the minute details, the minutia, let's just openly talk about. Oh, hold on, we got one more comment. Maria Lascuna, we also love you, girl. We love, ma'am. I don't know if you prefer to be called girl or ma'am, but Maria Lascuna has been one of our biggest supporters for a long time, so we appreciate you as well. So let's talk about Dwayne Haskins. Now, Dwayne Haskins was projected to be potentially, before he came into Ohio State, he was projected to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time at Ohio State. And they have videos. If you've been watching social media, they have videos of him as a kid walking into Ohio State, saying and then jumping on the electric bike or the exercise bike, and then saying to the staff that he will one day play for Ohio State. He actually played for Ohio State at a very high level. Was one of their most successful quarterbacks in his short tenure there. But he was drafted number 15 overall by the Washington Redskins, formerly the Washington Redskins. Now they were the Washington football team. Now they're the Commanders. But then he spent the last season as a backup with the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, who you love to death. And it was just sad because we found out this past weekend that he was down in Florida in Boca Raton, working out with other Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receivers, running backs. He was with Najee Harris. He was with Claypool. He was with Mitchell Trubisky. And he somehow decided to go jogging on the interstate at night. And I have my theories about why he was on the interstate at nighttime, because I think that the only reason why you should be jogging on the interstate at nighttime is because maybe your car broke down, you ran out of gas, or you were trying to help somebody else push their car. But regardless of the situation, he got hit by a dump truck and he's dead at the age of 24. And the reason why I feel so terrible about his death is because I've always been a proponent and always been one of the guys, an advocate for for anybody who is an underdog in the league, no matter what league, and Dwayne Haskins, a couple years ago, I predicted that, yeah, he's had a terrible start in Washington. This guy freaking had a draft party. He's from DC, was getting drafted to the Washington, D.C. team. He had a freaking draft party, probably the only guy in the NFL history that had a draft party where he charged cover like it was a freaking nightclub. And so all those people that you see when they get drafted behind him and they're clapping and then they're hugging him, he's hugging his girlfriend. He charged all those people cover. He probably didn't charge his parents, probably didn't charge his girlfriend, but everybody else that was there, aunts, uncles, family members, cousins, friends, they all got charged cover. And I thought it was very low class. He's been caught doing some random things that looked like you are not ready to be an NFL quarterback. You're not ready to be the face of a franchise. But ultimately, when we look back at Dwayne Haskins' life and his career, he was great at certain times, and especially at Ohio State. And there were a lot of professional athletes that reached out to the family or that went on social media, and they basically progressed. They basically showed how much they loved Dwayne Haskins or how much they felt that he had potential to be better than what we all see, what we all seen, him put out on the football field. But it's just a sad situation. Anytime anybody dies, I don't care if it's somebody who committed murder. Anytime a human being dies, it's a sad thing. But Dwayne Haskins was, in my opinion, he was one of the stories that I was just waiting to see develop into a success story. That he's an underdog, and I predicted years ago that he would eventually become the starter for the next 10 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And by him dying down in Florida, working out with Steelers, we don't know. Like his car might have broke down. He might have been in a domestic violence situation, or he might have just been jogging on the freeway like he shouldn't have been. And he passed away. But ultimately, I felt like I was rooting for this guy, and I'm sad that he passed away. What are your thoughts, Rudy Reyes?
Well, there are a lot of things that I really think about, and one of those is, look, he's a human being first, and when you think about the types of things that human beings go through, I'm sure he's went through his own tragedy, his own situations where he had to figure out what he was going to do with his life, how he was going to get to the next level. Was it going to be the Washington football team? Was it going to be the Commanders? Was it going to be another team in the NFL? And what's really interesting to me is that he was a human first and a football player second. And along with that, he was a brother. Him and his sister Tania were extremely close. He would attend some of her events, and then she would attend his events as he played under center for Ohio State. And the saddest part about all of this in of itself is that Dwayne Haskins was a guy who was drafted by the wrong team into a very bad situation, especially when you look at Dan Snyder's record. And obviously there are more news coming out about Dan Snyder and the fact that he skimmed $5 million from fans, essentially, which clearly does not look any better than the sexual harassment allegations that are surrounding the Washington Commanders right now. One thing about Dwayne Haskins is that he played through that system, so he understood that. A backup, yes. Third string in Pittsburgh when the Steelers acquired him, yes. They had
look,
a $1 million deal.
The wrong system, him being drafted into the wrong system, I felt like is not fair to either party, the Washington football team or Dwayne Haskins. I felt like he was just drafted to the wrong city because let's take into consideration when a big time college player is drafted into their home state, their home city, the team that they grew up rooting for, it's a gift and a curse. And there are players out there that have been able to excel in that situation. And there have been players that they have too many friends, too many cousins, too many auntie and uncles, too many family members that are just pulling away from them. And they are not able to focus in the city that they're in. I feel like Dwayne Haskins, for us to criticize him and say that he was terrible in Washington, he grew up in Washington. And that's a place where not only does he have a support system, but he has a very unsupportive system. And people because I've done radio in my hometown and I've done radio in California. But when I moved back to Virginia, the first time that I hosted a club, I show up to the club. And I told the bouncer, my name is Barry Long. He was like, oh, let me check. Barry Long's already in here. I said, hell no. There's only one Barry Long. Well, there's two. At the time, there were two. And now there are three. Shout out to my son and my dad. But I was like, there's no way Barry Long's in the club. And some dude that I knew got into the club based off my name because he knew I was hosting the club. So that is just a minuscule detail, a minutia of what could happen. Imagine if you're an NFL player that got drafted 15th overall in your hometown. There's going to be everybody pulling at you from left and right, asking you for money, asking you to co-sign their car, to co-sign their apartment. And it is a slippery slope. And I feel like we unfairly criticized Dwayne Haskins because of that situation. And I felt like him being under the tutelage of Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin, who's from the 757 and is just a leader of men, I felt like he had a chance to become something great. And I felt like we lost somebody at a young age who and we never got to see his full potential.
Well, the bottom line to this is that he was drafted in the wrong system. It's not that he wasn't necessarily the most ready player, because he was ready. But was he ready to exit college to get into the next level? You can have the argument based on some of those unforeseen things and not very heard about situations where, they were very questionable in regards to what Dwayne Haskins did off and on the field. But more importantly, it was about him as a person. Somebody lost a son. They lost a brother. They lost a friend. They lost a cousin. They lost someone who they looked up to, somebody who aspired at a very young age to get to the collegiate level and then eventually get drafted by the NFL. So when you look at Dwayne Haskins as a whole, it was a wrong system, which committed, I think, partially to his football career and his demise. But more so than that, it was about him being given another opportunity, not only to redeem his play, but the ability to go in and battle out Mitch Trubisky for a starting role, even though Mason Rudolph is still part of that fold.
All right. So let me ask you right now, Rudy. You're a diehard Steeler fan. Hence is the reason why you have the Pittsburgh Steelers hat on. And I'm a Ravens fan. For everybody who doesn't know, you should know if you've been watching the Hot Minutia long enough. But let me ask you this. So you just mentioned that he had a potential to be the starting quarterback over Mitchell Trubisky. Do you honestly think that if Dwayne Haskins was alive today, that he would ever take over the starting role? Or do you think it's all Mitchell Trubisky? Because in my opinion, as much as I root for Dwayne Haskins and his story, and he's the underdog, I think that Mitchell Trubisky was going to be their starter. The only way Dwayne Haskins would have been their starter is if Mitch got hurt.
Well, there's no way to make that determination whether or not he was going to be the backwards, bench warmer for a guy who, drafted by the Chicago Bears, who had a serious situation there where he wasn't allowed to do anything other than play in a system under Matt Nagy, who's a horrible head coach, in my opinion, my professional opinion. So it wasn't as if he had a chance to prosper, a chance to grow, a chance to emulate somebody as a backup quarterback, but that's exactly what Mitch did. He went to Buffalo. He took the opportunity to work under Sean McDermott. He worked under the quarterback coach. He's seen what Josh Allen was able to do. Same thing with Dwayne Haskins. He had the ability to leave it a dysfunctional franchise to a franchise where he had the ability. What offseason workouts he had going on? Well, we clearly know now he was working with Chase Claypool. He was working with the wide receiving core. He was working with Mitch Trubisky. And Mitch is the kind of guy who's been there, done that. So he understands the situation probably better than any other quarterback currently playing in the NFL, not named Carson Wentz. Okay. So, or even Matt Ryan, for that matter. If you really want to go there, you lose in a Super Bowl. And
I root for both those guys. I root for every underdog.
I rest my case. So he was rooting for himself. He was a likable guy. He was a very quiet guy. He said very little. He listened a lot more than he spoke. And that's the number one rule of thumb for a guy like Dwayne Haskins. He learned to grow in the system. He played under Mason Rudolph, which really doesn't say a whole lot to Mason Rudolph's credit, because I'm not a fan of Mason Rudolph.
Nobody learned under Mason Rudolph.
but
Unless they were laying bricks
learned
and
from
they
Ben
became a Mason.
Unless he became a Mason. I didn't see a Mason ring on his finger. But anyway.
Or Freemason.
Or Pre-Mason or Post-Mason or Concrete Mason, whatever. Yeah, thank you, Freemasons, for making us free. I don't know. But, at the end of the day, Dwayne had the capabilities of being not only a quality backup, maybe for one season. The Steelers just tendered him, by the way, in order for him to learn underneath Mitch Trubisky, learning together, working in concert with one another. That's a minute detail right there. When you work in concert with a guy who's been there, done that, you learn a lot. You gain a lot of humility, and that's exactly who Dwayne Haskins was eventually going to turn out to be. Did he leave college too soon? Did he want to get out of college too soon? Yeah. What college player doesn't when you're at the top of your game, owning Big 12, scoring touchdowns and in others statistical categories? It's something that he was aspiring to be in the NFL. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is that Dwayne Haskins will be sorely missed. I actually cried when I seen that story between him and his sister and how close a relationship that they
As did
had.
I.
And I must admit that it certainly touched me in a way that made me want to go buy a Dwayne Haskins jersey in remembrance of him. And I guarantee the Steelers will do the very same thing on their helmets this upcoming season. Mark my words on that one, because when the founder of the Steelers passed away, they had a sticker on their helmet, and they actually had a patch, DMR, on their jersey. So it just goes to show that life is short. Love the ones that love you, and show them that you do love them, because life is just too short to not do so.
Absolutely. And Rudy, you and I have both been through life-changing experiences, life-changing car accidents where we shouldn't be here. And we've talked extensively, privately about this. We've talked on the show about this. And this wasn't a car accident, okay? He got hit by a freaking dump truck. And it sounds so crazy because, Rudy, you were actually the person who messaged me that morning and told me, you said RIP, you sent me a link to the Twitter story, and then you said RIP Dwayne Haskins. And just because Dwayne Haskins has been so overly criticized over the past years, I thought that he got released from the Steelers and that it was like RIP to his career. But when I clicked on the story, I actually shed tears. And I'm the type of guy who's emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot of times on the show. And if you know me personally, I do. And I cry. When I see a good Make-A-Wish story on ESPN, I cry. I cry every time I watch the Ravens win the Super Bowl when they play those replays, because I know how long it took Joe Flacco to win the Super Bowl. I'm an emotional guy. And Dwayne Haskins, I felt like it's just a life cut short. And we all know the potential that he had because we saw him at Ohio State. And I felt like being a part of the Steelers organization, who is such a first-class organization, I felt like that was an opportunity for him to learn and for him to grow and for him to eventually become the leader there, especially under Mike Tomlin. And I just felt like it's a life cut short. So we wish the Haskins family the best. We wish his wife and his kids the best. And it's just sad. And there were people that went on Sirius XM. There are people that went on sports radio. They went on TV and talked a lot of smack about his inability to play at a high level. And he never did reach his full potential at the NFL level. But we saw how good he is in college. And it's just a sad story. So we wish him the best. We are live on CoachellaValley.com, live on today'scalifornia.com, Today's Canada. Maria Lascuna says this is definitely a very sad situation. So young and so promising. And he truly was. But now let's move on. We are live. And this is the Hot Minutia. Y'all know this is Rudy Marone Reyes and Barry Long the second, live on Today's California, Today's Canada, as well as CoachellaValley.com. Now, we had the NBA play-in games today. And we saw the Nets. Before we get to Frank Vogel, we'll end the show on Frank Vogel, because I know we have some strong opinions on Frank Vogel and who should be the next Lakers coach. But let's talk about the game that we just witnessed. We just watched it, the end of it, before we came live right here on the Hot Minutia. The Nets have defeated the Cavaliers 115-108. They were not playing with perhaps their best player, their best defensive player, Jared Allen, the Cavaliers. They have a lot of promising players like Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, and they're a really good team, and they've been under the radar for a long time.
Yeah,
this entire season, and I always watch the NBA games on NBA TV. I got the package, and I currently check in. I don't like to check in on Cavalier games because I think the Cavaliers have been irrelevant since LeBron left. But this year, they became relevant again. Evan Mobley, I mean, this team is kind of exciting. And I love what JB Bickerstaff has been able to do with his coaching staff. But ultimately, when you saw that they were facing the Nets in this play-in game, you knew that they had no chance, and especially without Jared Allen. And then you also knew that the Nets, now that they have Kyrie Irving playing full-time, they have Kevin Durant, although they've struggled this season, they still are too dominant and too good of a team to lose to the Cavaliers. And at one point in this game, they were up by 40. So they ended up only winning by 7. But I think that this will propel the Nets into the next game that they'll play. And then I think that ultimately they will face the number 1 seed and that they have a chance, have a serious chance. If not winning the series, they will take it to 7 games. What say you, Rudy Reyes?
I actually watched a good part of that game, and there was a lot of things that I liked. But one of the things they did not have an answer for, and that's the Cavaliers, was KD. KD was able to shoot from outside the perimeter. He was able to, score at will, be the willing passer when he needed to.
Who has an answer for KD?
Nobody does.
I ain't seen
That's part
one
of
yet.
the problem. That's part of the problem because everybody in the NBA forgets how to play defense. Hello, spell defense ROLAIDS, and that would be your defense. But at the end of the day, there was just no way that the Cavaliers were going to outgas a guy like Kyrie Irving, who has been he believes in Ramadan, so he's actually been fasting a lot for the last week or so. So how he came up with the energy, shout out to them. How he was able to play through all that time without eating and drinking very little. I mean, you have to quench your body, obviously.
I think that they're allowed to eat after sundown because I know a few Muslims and my cousin's Muslim too. So yeah, they're allowed to eat they don't eat until like 7:30. So my man did not have a pregame meal. My man balled out like that on no food and barely anything but water.
He balled out big time, and that's just one of the things that Kyrie Irving gives you. It was a Kyrie and KD show, is what it was. Cavaliers, they got this game down to 10 at one time, and then even to 4 at one time, but they just could not get the lead. And matter of fact, they never led. They never led the entire game. So it just makes you wonder. Now, look, the Cavs are still in it. They're not out of it. They still have one opportunity to play the lowest possible seed because of their current seeding in order to get in. The biggest question is whether or not that team that they're going to face is the one they want to versus the one they don't want to. So that's kind of what it boils down to right now.
Absolutely.
Look, when you look at the Cavs, 35-19 in the fourth quarter alone, the Cavs just did not have any answers at all in the transition game. And when you give KD the ball, yeah, fine. So he's a stick figure theater who knows how to play ball and to drop threes like it's going out of business. That's just something that he knows how to do. But the team finishes regular season 44-38 and earned the 7th seed by virtue of winning their head-to-head series 3-1. Now, it was an opposite end of the scale when both these teams faced off earlier in the year because the Cavaliers took the Nets to the cleaners. So it was about, who was going to get the best of who in this game. And at the end of the day, there was just not enough. They were missing a couple components for the Cavaliers. Kevin Love did everything that he could.
Which ain't much.
Well, I mean, like I said,
at this point, Kevin Love was a dominant player. He was a rebound. He was a stud when he played with Minnesota. He had to be a role player. He was reduced to a role player at his first stint with Cleveland when LeBron was there. But Kevin Love he's on the back end. He's on that back nine. If you're a golf fan.
He's on the back nine, and no, Tiger Woods did not win the Masters, as I thought. But
I told you who would win.
But at the end of the day, and I'm not a betting man, and you didn't put any money on it, guarantee. Otherwise, I would have heard about it. So I don't take bets. I don't do bets. And all
right, so Rudy, look at that first quarter. Okay, that tells me all that I need to know. Okay, 20-40. Brooklyn came out and they put their foot on Cleveland's necks. And yes, they did digress and they did make mistakes in other quarters and they had turnovers. They didn't knock down shots that they were supposed to. I honestly thought that they rested KD too late in the second half and brought him in too late. But ultimately they won the game. And ultimately we saw who's the better team out of both teams. So I felt like the Cavaliers had no chance. Even though it's a 7-point game at the end of it, I felt like they had no chance. What do you
Sure.
say?
No. They really didn't. It was 40 points in the first quarter. It was kind of setting the tone for the rest of the quarters to come. And you already knew what was going to happen. Fast break opportunities, shooting from the three, getting to the free throw line, making most of those count, right? Because you can win a game at the charity stripe. No one's ever said that you can't, because you can. It's been done before. And other teams have put other teams out of misery at the free throw line, aka charity stripe. But when you look over to the Western Conference game right now, what's going on against the Timberwolves and the Clippers? They're playing in Minnesota right now.
What's the score right now? Because I can't see.
Marcus Morris. Well, I'll give you the real breakdown. Paul George has 24 points. Marcus Morris was 12. Norman Powell was 16. Reggie Jackson, not to be confused with the baseball player, Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson.
Mr. October.
Points. Mr. October, exactly. Robert Covington with 7. So right now, as it stands, this is a close game. LA Clippers 82, Minnesota 75. So it looks as though, look, Minnesota's staying in this, even though Karl Anthony Towns has 4 fouls. They decided to pull him in the second quarter, in the first half of the game. He got into foul trouble very early, so you're not going to see him until probably late in the third, maybe somewhere in the early fourth quarter for Minnesota. But at the end of the day, he's their leading scorer. Well, Anthony Edwards is their leading scorer now. 20 points, 22 by D'Angelo Russell. And then you have a supporting cast, essentially. So it's not as if this game's out of reach by any means.
Absolutely. And the thing I love about the Minnesota Timberwolves is they just battle, and they have been irrelevant to primetime games for a long time. And Karl Anthony Towns, he has been a stud underneath the radar for a while. And I honestly, when I looked at this game, I picked the Minnesota Timberwolves just because I believe in Karl Anthony Towns and his ability to take over the game. And I hate the Clippers because I'm a Lakers fan.
That's my issue right there. Well, don't forget,
we got a comment from how do you say that name? Rosha Hajer. She says hi from Hungary. Look, Rosa, I'm not from Hungary, but I am Hungary.
I am not Hungary. I am not even from Hungary.
What did you eat for dinner tonight, Rudy?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
All right, well, I'll tell you who did eat tonight for dinner, because he probably can't eat anything because he got fired from the freaking Lakers. We just lost Frank Vogel as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and we knew that it was coming. Although he had a great record with them, although he's 18 months removed from winning an NBA championship in the bubble, albeit, Frank Vogel basically lost the voice of the locker room. And at some point, you could just see it. And if you watch the local Lakers channels, the Spectrum sports channels that we have when we're living in Southern California, you understand that you see all the minutia of the timeouts, and you see all the background videos that aren't shown on ESPN Sports Center. And you see how Frank Vogel calls a timeout, and he talks to the players in a timeout. Sorry about that. And they don't even respond. They literally look down at whatever they're doing. They look up at the scoreboard. They're not paying attention to Frank Vogel. He has lost the locker room. He's lost the team. And despite him winning a championship within the last 2 years, he had to go. And I think that David Fizdale is the right choice for the next coach of the Lakers. You're shaking your head no? Tell me why.
I'm going to take Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson is a player's coach. Okay. He knows better, has won more than Fizdale, because Fizdale will fizz out and will be out a lot faster than you want him to. But Mark Jackson,
I just hope the Lakers ain't lose that fizz, like when you leave the cap open on the bottle of Coke.
Well, that's exactly what's going to happen at the end of the day. These guys are not going to play well for David Fizdale. Yes, they're familiar with him, but Mark Jackson has a way of getting into players' minds, has a way of coaching these guys up, whoever they are. Unfortunately, Frank Vogel is the poster child for what Jeannie Buss ultimately screwed up, Pelinka screwed up, and that's the bottom line. Vogel was the fall guy, and every head coach knows that. Just because they make the errors up front in the front office, they're looking down on you, literally, because they have a box office up top. That's why they're looking down. And he was just a guy who was, I don't know, I think that he was played to a certain degree. The share certainly goes around. We've talked about this before, Barry, that LeBron James shares some of that along with AD with his injury-prone marshmallow man type of approach to getting his game better by eating more bonbons, instead of gaining more time. But at the end of the day, Frank Vogel's a fall guy. Unfortunately, that's what it is. It is what it is, and the next man up for the Lakers.
All right, so when we saw that Mark Jackson got fired, the guy who you mentioned should replace Frank Vogel, Mark Jackson got fired, in my opinion, as the fall guy for the Warriors not reaching their maximum potential when they had Monte Ellis and Steph Curry. They had just started drafting, Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And I honestly felt like Steve Kerr was the right guy for that job. If you remember back at that time, he had an offer from the New York Knicks, and he thought about taking that job. He actually accepted that job, and they called him back. Was like, you know what? My bad. I'm taking the job out west. And it was the best, my bad, in the history of the NBA, because my man is probably going to be their coach until he decides to retire. But Frank Vogel, although I know that he has no voice whatsoever in the Los Angeles Lakers locker room, I feel like he is a defensive coach, and he's one of the best defensive coaches outside of Tom Thibodeau in the league. And Mark Jackson, and I feel like he lost his job, but he ultimately ended with a winning percentage that was higher than 500, and he will go on to coach another team. It should not be the Orlando Magic, who he failed miserably for. It should not be the Pacers, not be the Lakers, but maybe he ends up being the next head coach of the Portland. No, I don't want to say Portland.
Rockets.
The Rockets. I'll go Rockets. I'll take the Rockets.
But think about this. There are rumors
or the
about
Charlotte
Nick
Hornets.
Nurse, or the Hornets. I like to see that. That would be a good move. But I think that when you look at
Frank Vogel is a coach that should coach again in this league.
Nick Nurse has a huge contract with the Toronto Raptors, but this is LA. Okay. LA knows how to get its man, because we know what happened with AD, even though they paid the piper.
You think Nick Nurse is coming to be the head coach of the Lakers?
Nick Nurse could very well be that guy.
Honestly,
but again, I don't know.
I love that. I love that pick, though. I love that pick, Rudy. I think that could very well be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. I didn't even think about Nick Nurse, but they try to lure.
He's up north, Snyder. That's why. The guy from the north.
Real quick. All right. So look, we have the meme of the day that we always do. And the meme of the day is always sports related. Sometimes it's not sports related, but I just thought this is super hilarious because I'm just now living in a different situation. and furniture is a thing. Okay. And I don't know who's ever been out there and purchased furniture, but you don't want to get furniture from IKEA. And you typically want to go to a place like Ashley Furniture. But this is not sports related. This is not even a meme. It's just a status that's been quoted multiple times and been shared a lot of times. Ashley Furniture, high as hell. Where Lakeisha Furniture located at? and look straight up. I can say it because I'm black. But Lakeisha, Lakeisha got deals. And when I moved out to California, I saw a place called Jerome Furniture, right? Jerome Furniture in Southern California. Yeah. And I thought Jerome was an exclusively black name, like DeAndre. It's not, because I met 3 Jeromes since I've been in California, and they all say, "My name is Jerome, but call me Jerry." I don't know where Ashley Furniture is at, but I'm looking for Lakeisha Furniture all day. And Lakeisha, she got better deals than IKEA.
Oh my gosh! Wow. All
right, real quick, we got to answer this question, because Bill Senso says, "Here's a question for you: If the Lakers, hold on, let me tell you, if the Lakers have another losing season and don't make the playoffs, do the Lakers fire Rob Pelinka?" We have 30 seconds apiece. You go first.
Yes, I do, because he failed to, work out certain contracts. Yeah, Jeannie Buss is the one who signed the check, but at the end of the day, Rob Pelinka is the one who pulls them in to have those conversations. So if Rob Pelinka doesn't do proper scouting, which every sports team should do in a collective environment, is go out and scout the right guys for the right positions, for the right jobs, for the right salary. Rob Pelinka failed at that almost 2 years going. So if anything happens this upcoming season, you get the wrong personnel in there, you want to pull a double ARP card for all these other aging stars that come into the Lakers system, you had to change the mentality and the mindset. It has to be progressive, because right now the only thing progressive is flow. and Rob Pelinka's going to flow out of that Lakers
And it ain't
system.
Baker Mayfield because he gone.
But you're going to see, you're going to see Rob. You're going to see Rob Pelinka be gone a lot faster than a Slurpee in the theater.
Hey. Or a little bag of chips in the theater that I put in my little hoodie pocket because I never paid for it. I buy bag popcorn. All right, real quick, Rudy, let them know where they can find you at, man.
You can go to @Reyes on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook by the name that's written like right. Well, I'll see where my finger is. Okay, right there on the right hand side. And you can go. I'm pulling a berry right now. I gotta find the area.
Hey, I know how to do it. You just messed me up.
I used to know how to do it.
I'd be like this.
Well, now it's still there, so you're good. You can go to Instagram and find me, Rudy Reyes. You can go to LinkedIn, follow me there. Well, you can go to therudogshow.com where this show will be posted, if not tonight, tomorrow. So like it, love it, share it, because we like that kind of thing.
Absolutely. We love it. And just make sure you go and follow CoachellaValley.com on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, everywhere. Go follow Today's California, Today's Canada. And make sure if you want to know who I am, just follow it right there. Barry Long, space II, that's capital I's. On Facebook, I'm also a Barry Long II on Twitter. And I'm Barry Long _2 on IG. Remember, this week, well, we're gonna see y'all tomorrow. We're gonna be more consistent with our shows. We're gonna see y'all tomorrow. But make sure that make sure you stay focused, stay motivated, stay inspired, and remember that you're capable of doing anything. So go out and freaking do it. And rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins.
You go, Dwayne.
We'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.
Good night.